Hello and welcome to LSU Focus. It's post-match reaction showtime after Liverpool have won yet again in what was potentially our ugliest win of the season so far. I think it certainly rivals Sheffield United away earlier on in the season for that berth. And like that game against Sheffield United, it was a game against a side that was actually really good. Probably one of the most difficult matches we've had all season in terms of the way the opposition set up, the quality they brought to the table. I thought Wolves dealt with a lot of the problems they were lumped with in their lap with this game absolutely fantastically. There was no sign that they were fatigued. I think Nuno Espirito Santo got it absolutely spot on in terms of the way he rotated around the players he left in the side versus the ones he took out, and then subbing certain players on to make sure they didn't tire in the last half hour or anything like that. I thought they were absolutely admirable with the way they represented themselves at Anfield, and I don't think they were hard done by refereeing decisions. I know there's going to be plenty of VAR chat coming out of this game. We're going to have it all coming out of and then back into our ears for absolutely ages. Personally, I don't want to talk about it too much because at the end of the day, it just gets both decisions right, and you can talk for ages about whether that's a good thing or not because of the way it delays the game. But the fact of the matter is, it got the fair result on both occasions. It isn't a handball by Adam Lallana. I've got no idea why Anthony Taylor is so obsessed with flagging, and it turns out the reason that they took so long to check whether or not it was a fair goal is not because of whether or not it was a handball. That was very obvious very early on. The issue was whether or not Anthony Taylor had blown his whistle before the ball went into the back of the net, and obviously if he blows his whistle well beforehand, then the Wolves players are entitled to stop playing, and as a result the goal shouldn't stand because anything that happens after the whistle blow is just essentially illegitimate. So if anything, it was just Anthony Taylor being crap. And that was kind of the story of the entire match, to be perfectly honest. As usual, he was rubbish, as he always is when he referees Liverpool. I don't have too many opinions about what he's like when he referees other games because I don't really pay too much attention to those games or to how Anthony Taylor performs. But definitely, whenever he comes to Anfield, he always seems to have it in for us. Whether that's because he's from Manchester and because he's from a family full of Manchester United fans. But obviously, he supports Altrincham, so there's clearly nothing going on there at all. But as it stands, he was unable to stop Liverpool. It seems no one's capable of stopping Liverpool at the moment. And I think, like I said, what Wolves weren't hard done by here. The fact of the matter was Liverpool were just that tiny bit better than them. And that is almost always going to be the case this season. And I think they are probably one of our nearest challengers in terms of just those 90-minute matches. Not in terms of the league campaign as a whole, of course. The table reflects that. But of the teams we've come up against, Wolves were absolutely fantastic and better than most of the big six teams we faced. Thinking about, games against Arsenal at Anfield, Spurs at Anfield, Man City at Anfield didn't put up as much of a fight. And if anything, it's only Wolves' inability in the final third when it came to actually getting shots on goal that let them down. And I think that's probably testament to how fantastic Alisson Becker is, because when they did get shots on goal, he dealt with it absolutely brilliantly. And I think we are starting to see something. We've seen it since he arrived at Liverpool, but it's manifesting itself more and more, especially in those late stages of the games where opposition teams start to get desperate in their search to try and get a goal. Players feel like they've got to hit the perfect shot. They've got to find the postage stamp top corner. Their shot has got to be absolutely brilliant and unsavable for it to get past Alisson Becker. And if it isn't all of those things, then he is going to save it. And I think that's what happened for the last 10 minutes of the game. Wolves created some decent chances, and if they just played the percentages and shot sensibly and gone for the low corners or anything like that, I reckon they probably would have got a goal out of it. But because they feel like our goalie's unbeatable, they end up taking these ridiculous risks, and most of the time the ball ended up in row Z. So yeah, Wolves absolutely fantastic. Liverpool left a little bit to be desired, I think, in the match, to be perfectly honest. I don't think the 4-2-3-1 was quite working in our favour. It was certainly playing into Wolves' hands, because what happens is when we go forward and when we have possession, they're not a part of the bus team, but they do pack those central areas and they make it very difficult to play the ball along the floor. And I thought from very early on it was clear we maybe needed someone like a Divock Origi in the box who could be a bit more physical, a bit more of a battering ram, because we were getting plenty of crosses in because that was essentially the only thing we were able to do, and we just didn't really have anyone on the end of it most of the time, or Wolves had the strength and the tactical nous to be able to cut any reasonably good crosses out. So I think the way we set up just didn't quite play into our hands. Adam Lallana obviously comes into the side in a slightly unfamiliar role. He's playing in that 4-2-3-1. I think he plays a little bit too far forward, and I think we definitely got it right in terms of switching back to the 4-3-3 for the second half, or at least that's what it looked like. You know, Mo Salah drifted back out wide where he's getting a little bit more space, but weirdly not actually being as involved in the game. His best moments came in that centre-forward role that we have seen him in the past, and when he plays that role, sometimes he is absolutely fantastic. I think the issue we had was that the 4-2-3-1 wasn't really working in the midfield as well. Creatively, it definitely helped with the players being a little bit leggy. I think one of the issues with 4-3-3 and the way we set up with 4-3-3 with a deep line bank of midfielders and an attack that pushes up and gets quite central is that it asks a lot of the players' legs. The midfielders got to be galloping up and down the pitch. Same with the fullbacks as well. They've got to be defensive and very, very attacking. And I think given how many games these players are going through at the moment, that just wasn't really a possibility. So I think we were essentially forced into the 4-2-3-1. I don't think it was something that was done to try and get past Wolves, to outthink them tactically. I think it was simply done out of necessity because the players didn't have the legs. And when you have that extra bank, that three between the striker and the midfielders, it just means you can play more of a possession game that isn't as much built on players charging forward with the ball and more about trying to unpick defences. And I think the issue we had was that Wolves' defence was just very good and that we couldn't really unpick them. And players like Adam Lallana just weren't quite finding their feet. I don't think he ever quite worked out where he wanted to take up his position, whether he was going to force himself out wide and create space for others that way, whether he was going to get into the box and try and operate in the tight spaces, or whether he was going to work in the hole. He kind of tried all three, but never quite settled on one. And again, maybe that's testament to Wolves kind of hounding him out, if you pardon the pun, and just kind of causing him problems wherever he tried to set himself up. They certainly seemed to target him as a potential weak point for Liverpool on the ball. I think he probably could have used Alexander-Arnold as an outlet a little bit more, obviously playing on that right-hand side. Trent was always in loads and loads of space, and I think if Lallana had got the ball to him a little bit more often, because at times he did, that massive chance Salah had earlier on in the game was due to some great control and then a layoff from Adam Lallana that finds Trent Alexander-Arnold in space running onto things. Trent looked like the only player who wasn't really suffering from the previous fixtures. I think both physically and mentally, some of the players just looked a little bit tired. Virgil van Dijk makes that absolutely ridiculous mistake where he's just dawdling on the ball with Wolves players all around him and they take the ball off him and he ends up falling over trying to catch up. I think that's just mental tiredness. Andrew Robertson as well just looked like he never quite had the extra yards of pace he needed. Whenever there was a loose ball, the kind of loose ball that he was jumping on, that he was ravenous for in that game against Leicester 3 days ago, and when there were, you know, balls being pumped over, switches from Trent and stuff like that, that he would normally run onto and then whip across in, he just wasn't getting there. And a lot of the time what we actually saw was Sadio Mane, who I thought was brilliant at both ends of the pitch today, was getting back quite a lot to defend. And I thought Mane performed admirably because obviously technically he's not the best defender. Sometimes he can get stood up by a winger quite easily. But that extra body was very, very helpful because Robertson, I thought, was really, really struggling at times today. And you did start to see him simply sticking with the back line and not going forward. And maybe that's why Liverpool switched to the 4-2-3-1 as well. We wanted a little bit more width in the attack. You know, having Salah and Firmino in the middle means that both Lallana and Mane can push out wider a little bit more and provide that width that we lose through having the fullbacks play a little bit more defensively. But it just never quite felt like it was clicking. And maybe that's a personnel thing. Maybe it's because we were so settled into the 4-3-3. It worked absolute wonders against Leicester. We've used it pretty much all the way through the season with very, very obvious success. So I think maybe the tweaks slightly set the players off. Roberto Firmino also, it seemed a little bit weird to move him back into the hole when he's in this fantastic goal scoring form at the moment. I just felt like he never quite found his way into the game. Not because he wasn't trying, but because I just think he never quite worked out what his niche was, what the areas were that he could operate in. A similar thing with Adam Lallana as well. I just felt like our players never really found their feet, but at the end of the day, Liverpool get the goal, and as much as I've criticised Adam Lallana, it's a great assist, a little pop of the shoulder to lay it off to Sadio Mane, and then a great finish from Mane as well. And that is what these Liverpool players do. I've said it time and time again. They come up with the moments that matter, even when they're not playing well, even when the whole team's not playing well, and Wolves are playing to the best of their ability. That's what's so mind-boggling about the game. It's not that the game was rubbish, which is sometimes the case with ugly football matches, and the case when you do have to win ugly. Liverpool were slightly below their best, and Wolves were brilliant. and yet Liverpool still come away with the result. And some of it, I think, is just down to that finishing quality. Mane taking his chance when so many Wolves players just weren't taking theirs. That's the kind of thing that sets us apart. And when I say about how Wolves look pretty much level with us in 90-minute matches, they look like they can take the game to us, and a lot of the time they do look a little bit unlucky, but the table doesn't lie. They haven't got that X factor that Liverpool have got. They haven't got that relentless ability to just keep winning games, and it's just getting ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, I'm starting to think, how the hell do we drop points? I could see us drawing today. I really could, to the point where I almost made my peace with it. I thought the gap is so big now, and the players are being put under so much pressure. If we're ever going to drop points, it's going to be now. And of course, with January coming up, that's normally a difficult month for Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. It's normally when we see the effects of the difficult December period, where as much as we try and rotate, you can never quite anticipate the exact effect it's going to have. And normally it does take its toll on the players in January. And I can now make my peace with us dropping points, but the players aren't doing that. They are just so obsessed with winning. And it's the same with the coaching staff as well. I think last season at times, Jurgen Klopp was willing to take a draw. We saw it at Goodison, we saw it at Old Trafford as well. He was willing to say, you know what, away from home against a good side, and when we're not at our best, this is a decent point. That's not the case anymore. It is simply about just winning every single time, and that is what is so special about this Liverpool side. That's what makes it the best Liverpool side I and probably any of you have ever seen. Once again, it's done the business. It's got the 3 points. It's kept that lead at the top of the table. And that is all for today's video. That is all I can say about this absolutely brilliant team. Let me know what you think about the performance today. Whether you were, whether you thought we were going to throw it away, whether you thought we were going to get a draw, whether you were a bit disappointed that we didn't quite dominate Wolves as much as we should have done. Shout all your thoughts down in the comments below. Apart from that, as I said, that is all for the video. Don't forget to hit the like button down below as well. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LIVWOL TV on Twitter. I'll be back with the pre-match content for that game against Sheffield United very soon. Until then, bye for now.